Hi, everyone. I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining today. This webinar is entitled Enhancing the Understanding of Environmental Effects of Wind Energy. My name is Chris Hine. I work for the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. And for the first half of the webinar, I'll be giving an overview for WREN, which stands for Working Together to Resolve Environmental Effects of Wind Energy. And then for the second half of the webinar, colleagues at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory will review Tethys, which is a website that facilitates knowledge for marine renewable energy, land-based and offshore wind, and environmental issues. So I want to begin by talking about WREN and start with a brief overview of the International Energy Agency's Wind Technology Collaboration Program. So this was founded in 1977 to advance wind energy research, development, and deployment. IEA Wind currently has 26 member countries that participate in a variety of tasks. There are 16 in total at this point. And we're right in the middle of the current strategic plan for IEA Wind. And it has four main objectives: to maximize the value of wind energy in energy systems and markets, lower the cost of land-based and offshore wind, facilitate wind energy deployment through social support and environmental compatibility, and foster collaborative research and exchange of best practices and data. I put the last two in bold because I think those two best align with WREN. And so of the 16 tasks, WREN is one of those, and it's assigned number 34. So task 34 and WREN are synonymous. It was initiated in October of 2012, and it's been renewed every 4 years. And so just this past October, we began our third phase, which will run through September of 2024. And so the overarching goal for WREN is to serve as an international forum to support wind energy deployment through a better understanding of environmental issues, efficient monitoring programs, and effective mitigation strategies. WREN is currently made up of 13 member countries. The US, and specifically the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, serves as the operating agent for WREN, or the coordinator. The financial support is provided through the Department of Energy's Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Program, and then member countries support our activities through WREN with their time and support their own travel to meetings. The purpose of WREN is because the reason why it started is because obviously wind growth is global, and it's a rapidly growing market around the world, but also because many of the species that are affected either have a broad range or are migratory, and so they cross or span multiple jurisdictions. And so it really requires an international approach to resolving these environmental effects of wind energy. And, you know, the purpose is to both meet our conservation and energy production goals. And so WREN does this through informing the environmental community on challenges and opportunities, and providing scientifically credible data for decision makers. Over the first 8 years, WREN has facilitated 16 webinars, produced 7 fact sheets and short science summaries, as well as 4 white papers, 3 of which are now in peer-reviewed publications, and also the development and management of the Tethys website, again, which PNNL will speak to in just a few minutes. So in continuing with WREN, we recently went through this proposal process for acceptance for a third phase to continue WREN. But specifically over the next 4 years, we have a couple of objectives. One is to identify priority international research gaps. Two, to assess the technical readiness and effectiveness of solutions and strategies, both for monitoring and mitigating impacts. And to aggregate and synthesize available information on the global state of the science for a variety of topics. And we do this through working within WREN, but we do want to expand the membership within WREN, but also work with non-WREN member countries. We will establish a global technology database for monitoring and mitigation technologies, and disseminate scientifically based research and recommended practices. The next few slides kind of highlight several of our activities over the next couple of years. The first here is to conduct a horizon scan, or a systematic assessment of persistent and emerging issues. We want this to be repeatable, inclusive, and transparent. And so the process is to elicit feedback from the global community via an iterative process. So very soon we'll be sending out an announcement via Tethys blasts and through email describing this activity and giving the people the option to opt in and be a participant in our horizon scan. And so we'll start off with an initial set of questions that will be open-ended to get feedback and perspectives on the environmental issues that you experience, that you're familiar with for your region and for your stakeholder group. And we'll do this for both land-based and offshore wind energy. And then to turn these into, what are the priorities for a region, we'll rank these and work with participants one or two more times to really hone in and fine tune what are the key priorities for land-based and offshore wind with respect to environmental issues. Our next activity is to develop and maintain a database for monitoring and mitigation technologies. Here, we really want to evaluate the readiness level for each technology and assess and accumulate the research that's gone into validating the technology. So the database will be housed on Tethys, and the literature associated with the studies and validation efforts for each technology will be linked to the knowledge base. So it'll be a nice tool for those that are really interested in diving into what's been done for say bubble curtains or acoustic deterrents for bats. A third activity is to report on the state of the science on environmental issues. Here, this is something that WREN has been doing since its inception. We like to facilitate dialogue among the international environmental and wind energy communities to synthesize available resources and then disseminate those through a variety of activities such as short science summaries, webinars, conferences, and expert forums. And as we were developing the proposal, we did kind of an internal assessment of what the WREN member nations felt we should focus on and develop a strategic set of goal-based strategies. And for land-based wind, raptors kind of elevated to the top of what we should focus on in the near term for at least the first year. Seabirds was a topic for offshore wind. And so given those topics, we developed a set of goals and activities. And this is just an example, part of our set of goals for raptors for illustrative purposes, but we developed a set of goals and sub goals, and then the activities that we would perform. So just, I won't go through all of this, but just as an example for this first block, the goal was to reduce uncertainty regarding risk for raptors at wind farms. And so our first activity that we'll be kicking off here soon is to hold a webinar on ongoing research and available information related to raptor behavior and physiology as it relates to how these animals interact with wind turbines. We'll also convene a group of experts to talk about approaches to risk modeling, and then combine what we know from these two activities to develop a science summary or research briefs on the drivers of risk and any literature accumulated along the way that isn't already in the Tethys knowledge base will be included. Excuse me. So lastly, just to summarize what WREN will be doing is over the next couple of years is we really want to engage more with the global community and areas or regions that aren't represented within WREN. So WREN has good representation in North America with the US and Canada and several European countries, but not with large parts of the world. And so we do want to reach out with those representatives to understand their challenges and opportunities. We want to have greater synergy among the WREN tasks, the activities that we're working on. So we're conducting this horizon scan, and then in subsequent years, the priorities identified in the horizon scan can inform our state of the science activities. We want to focus on strategic activities regarding a stressor or receptor. So the example I gave is the focus, at least in this first year, on raptors and wind turbine interactions. And then lastly, we want to develop products that are practical and can reach different audiences. So some people may take in information best through a webinar or having a document in hand, something like a short science summary. Those who are really interested in a technology can go to the database and dive into what's been done to validate a technology. So we really just want to try to reach different audiences in the way that they receive and absorb information. So I'll stop there. And again, thank you for joining today. I'm going to hand it off to Alicia and Jonathan so that they can share with you new updates regarding Tethys. So let's see. There we go.
Great. Thanks, Chris. While we figure out the screen sharing, excellent. Thanks, Jonathan. So my name is Alicia Gorton. I'm with Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, and I'm joined today by Jonathan Whiting and Haley Farr, also from PNNL. And we are going to talk about Tethys. We're going to talk about how we support Chris and WREN, and we're going to just talk about how Tethys can also be used for you as stakeholders to help understand the environmental effects of wind energy, both land-based and offshore. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. So, environmental data and information related to wind energy can be difficult to access and interpret. And that just creates a lot of challenges related to siting and permitting. And so at PNL, one approach to that is to develop Tethys, which is an online knowledge base or database that just houses information in the forms of technical reports, of conference proceedings, conference presentations, monitoring reports, peer-reviewed journal articles. We curate that information. We make that available to stakeholders from countries around the world to really inform design, to reduce environmental effects, and also to facilitate permitting. And by doing that, we're really facilitating data and information exchange on the environmental effects of land-based and offshore wind energy, and also marine renewable energy. Tethys has a separate piece of it that's dedicated to environmental effects of marine renewable energy. And Tethys is also used as a commons or a platform to really help improve the connectedness among the industry. And so, as I mentioned, kind of the bread and butter of Tethys is really the knowledge base. And we call it the knowledge base because, again, we're curating all of this information and data that's housed in these documents, and they just contain a lot of knowledge. And so we have our knowledge base where you can search by stressor, receptor, technology type. Jonathan's going to walk through that in a couple of slides. And then for any information that's geotagged, or if it's specific to a certain location, we have a map viewer as well where you could do a geospatial search. And then every 2 weeks, we send out a Tethys blast, which is pretty much just a newsletter. And that gets sent out to the Tethys distribution list. That includes information on funding opportunities, potential job opportunities as well, any upcoming webinars, conferences. We also include like the top 5 or so new documents that have been added to Tethys, both for wind energy and marine renewable energy, and also the latest and greatest news articles for those industries as well. We host white papers and fact sheets on Tethys. And then, as Chris mentioned, Tethys is also used as a platform, a communications platform for WREN. And so any products that WREN produces, like short science summaries and white papers, we house all of those on Tethys and make those available to you. And then on the marine renewable energy side, the complement to WREN is an international initiative called OES Environmental, for Ocean Energy Systems Environmental. And that initiative really does look at environmental effects of marine renewable energy. And Tethys is used as their platform or communications commons as well. And so we host reports and short science summaries and fact sheets for OES Environmental as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan. And Jonathan is the development lead of Tethys, and he is going to walk through some of the most valuable tools and resources on Tethys. So Jonathan?
Great, thank you. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna start by walking through Tethys, and then I'll transition over and give a little bit of background information, kind of how it's been developed over time and things like that. So as I'm going through, feel free to pull up Tethys in a browser on the side. We're all sitting in front of our computers. Feel free to pull it up and explore as I walk through. You can find it at tethys.pnnl.gov. So I'm going to use screenshots with arrows and annotations to point out key features. So starting with the home page, it's meant to visually convey the scope of Tethys and the content within Tethys, which is environmental effects of wind and marine energy. You may ask, why do we have both wind and marine energy in the same database? Both industries have a lot of common environmental effects, particularly between offshore wind and marine energy. So it kind of works pretty well. And with filters and everything, you can easily get down to whatever it is you're interested in. So I'm going to point out a few quick things. So first, you can quickly locate up at the top. You can always quickly click this little icon up here and find any content you want. This is different than the knowledge base, but it's kind of a quick access to do a keyword search and find something you're looking for on Tethys. There's these rotating announcements right here. And we use these to highlight recent products and events. You can see today's webinar actually highlighted there right now. We have this events calendar. you can click on any of the events there and you can get more information about them. There's also a larger calendar event. We recognize this one's kind of small. If you look under the content menu up above, you can find that. And then we have Tethys stories down here, which these are contributed by an international audience, and they're typically or always on environmental topics. So the most recent one is highlighted there. The 4 blocks in the middle, you can click to learn more about wind energy, WREN, marine energy, or OES environmental. We're going to move on as if we clicked the wind energy icon. So this page is a great way to learn about wind energy resources on Tethys. I will note that this year we do plan to revamp this page. It's a little text heavy. We plan to create some new offshore wind page and a new land-based wind page to really highlight the specific needs of those various industries. And I also want to point out this one pager right here. It summarizes a lot of the wind work on Tethys and is a great place to get started. So we're now going to jump over to the knowledge base, which, as Alicia mentioned, is kind of the bread and butter of Tethys. There's some links to it here on this page, or you can find it under the content menu. But before you enter the knowledge base, you'll find this little selection here. You can we've pre-sorted the knowledge base basically into, if you're just interested in wind energy, you could click that, for example. If we click that, you can also save your, you can remember your selection if you have an account on Tethys. And even if you did remember your selection, you can always switch back up here at the top. You can switch to any of the other options, like just the marine energy side. The knowledge base is the main view on Tethys, and it really has the best utility for exploring documents. There's currently over 4,500 environmental wind documents, and these have all been hand selected and tagged by our content team at Tethys, or our content team at PNNL rather. The team is actively adding content, so the database is constantly growing and it does capture new documents. We can search with keywords, column sorting, and there's also, you can filter by any of these categories off to the right. These categories or tags are a major value added to this knowledge base. You can sort documents into these predefined topic areas. The environmental topic areas that we tend to sort by are environmental stressors and receptors, and you can also sort by various technology type, content type. There's quite a bit over there. The combination of filters and searching creates a powerful combination that aids a lot in things like literature reviews or other research. So if you click on any of the titles of a document, it'll take you to a page like this. And these are landing pages that are fed into search engines. So a lot of times people end up on Tethys directly on one of these pages because they were looking for a specific paper. This raises the discoverability and the impact of the research. This particular journal article details a model for the placement of wind turbines to reduce raptor collisions. You can find some basic information about the documents here, including a list of tags that's been tagged with that are all clickable for more information. A citation is generated down below, and that can be easily copied into papers, make split reviews, and finding those references a lot easier. There's also always going to be an access block for the document, and this is going to give you some form of access to the document. Copyright may prevent uploading the PDF, but we will link to a journal where it can be purchased. And where possible, we do upload the PDF to the document. And the knowledge base has a filter that you can actually show just results that have attachments if that's what you're interested in. Now this, when it is referencing a location, we'll geo tag it to that location. So this paper did a model validation in South Africa, so you can see it tagged there. We also have a larger knowledge base that allows you to explore everything in general. That can also be found under the content menu, so let's jump over to that. It has the same interface up at the top to pre-filter only to wind or switch to marine energy. And the map viewer shows a subset of documents that directly refer to a location. This gives a sense for where it is geographically, where that wind research is occurring. I will note that this map is probably biased towards English-speaking countries because for the most part, we only have English documents on Tethys. If we do have a couple instances where we have other languages, but we always require at least an English abstract. So a little bit biased, but we do see currently over 2,500 documents displayed. So this gives you, and the map, you can see the bubbles, it kind of gives you a sense for where a lot of that research is happening. As you zoom in, the clusters will explode into smaller clusters, and you can click on, or you can click on a cluster and it will kind of zoom into that area. It's a pretty fancy interface. It's very fun. And once you get down to the document icons, which are those little white icons, you can click one of those and a pop-up will come up that lets you access the document page associated with that document. Like the knowledge base, we have a keyword search and we have filtering. So a lot of searchability built into this map. So transitioning on, if you're new to the field, a big question might be, where do I find out more about these tags? You might be unfamiliar with what a stressor receptor is. So under the help menu, you can find the glossary, and this is just a great resource. It gives a complete list of all the technologies, environmental stressors, and receptors. If you're unfamiliar, again, stressors are the component or output from a wind turbine that has the potential to cause harm to the environment. And then receptors are going to be the part of the environment that is that may be impacted by the introduction of wind energy. So that would be your birds and bats. You can click on any of these terms to get more information. We're going to click on collision. Now, up at the top, you have a description that provides more details on what the term encompasses, which is really good for new people to the field. And below that, there's a table of documents, all the documents that are tagged with that term. So in this case, we have 836 documents addressing collision. This part of the website has kind of a Wikipedia-like feel to it. So you can also click on any of the tags below and you can you'll find a similar page just like this that has kind of a description up top, more documents. And you can also click on organizations or authors and get a similar kind of page. So fun way to explore all the content. Now we're going to jump over to the WREN page. This is kind of supporting a lot of what Chris spoke about earlier. So I won't spend too much time on this, but just know that there is a page on Tethys where you can find a lot of the key WREN products and like the white papers, the short science summaries or fact sheets, and the webinars. There is also, so you can see that there. There's also a WREN members page that can only be accessed by WREN members. The membership page simply has some collaboration materials, meeting notes, so don't worry, you're not missing too much. All of our stuff is meant to be public. This is just creating a space for them to be able to work. And real quick, just here's a second page for WREN, just scrolling down so you can see how stuff is displayed. Now I want to highlight a couple of WREN products to kind of wrap up the walkthrough. So the first are these fact sheets or short science summaries. We kind of use both terms. But both WREN and AWWI and some other partners have generated these nice kind of two-page handouts on environmental interactions, very specific interactions. And these are referred to as, again, either fact sheets or short science summaries, depending on where they came from. They're great summary materials for regulators and the public, very condensed material, very readable. And then below, so you can access it by clicking the PDF that's shown there in the text body, but then down below, we always present a table of supporting documents. And this is automatically updated when new content is added. So you'll see the most recent up-to-date information that's related to the topic. This particular fact sheet is based on risk-based management, and it summarizes a WREN white paper. So you can actually also link over here and get to the white paper if you want to read more about it. Webinars are another key product. We host a lot of webinars by WREN, OS Environmental, AWWI, and other partners. And all of these webinars are going to be covering environmentally focused topics. This table is searchable and sortable, and it is both an archive of past webinars and details on upcoming webinars. So up at the top, there is a sign up that you can go to sign up for notifications whenever there are upcoming webinars, like today's webinar. Just make sure that you subscribe to the wind energy content selection up there. We have a couple of lists that we manage. And then for past webinars, we provide recordings and presentations if you click on any of these. So just showcasing that, here's a past webinar. Down at the bottom, we do post all the webinar recordings on YouTube, on a YouTube channel, and you can see them linked in here, so you can watch them directly on Tethys as well. And if the webinar is part of a series, down below, you can typically find a list to the other webinars in the series. So I kind of wanted to end by showing a couple of ways to get involved. So first of all, our Tethys blasts, Alicia alluded to these. We send these every 2 weeks. They include announcements, upcoming events, new documents on Tethys, and some international news. It does include both wind and marine energy, but you can jump to whatever sections you're interested in. But it's a really helpful resource that a lot of people tend to appreciate and have told us that they like it. So also consider registering for a user account up at the top. You can save your preference for wind energy. You can actually link your author profile or your user profile to an author profile, so your information kind of shows up there, similar to like a LinkedIn page or something. You can also opt into the Tethys community, which is kind of a web page where contact information is shared. You know, it's purely opt-in, and it's only seen by other people who have a user account, but it's a nice way to facilitate community. And last, if you want to have any documents added to Tethys, something that we're missing, just email it to our Tethys email, which is tethys@pnl.gov. We usually add the documents the same day, though we will make a judgment call and we don't add content that's outside of the scope of Tethys content. So that's it for the walkthrough, but I wanted to quickly share a little more background information. And so first of all is the development side of Tethys. So as a workflow, Tethys has a team that actively searches out content, and that way we've trained them up so they're tagging stuff consistently. And this approach takes a little more time, but it does result in a higher quality, higher content quality, because it's all kind of been looked at by people and double checked through kind of some QA/QC processes. We also have an excellent developer team that makes improvements to the websites regularly. The website is built in Drupal, which is an open source framework used by millions of sites. And lastly, a lot of effort goes into outreach. We host webinars like this one to try to showcase the tool. We run a Facebook and Twitter account, and we actively optimize our web pages for search engines just to make everything more discoverable. The timeline shows several milestones over a decade of operation. I want to point out that Tethys and WREN were joined at the hip when WREN began in 2013, and also point out that originally Tethys just had offshore wind and marine energy, and land-based wind was actually added in 2015. Some analytics on the site. Anyone familiar with Google Analytics will recognize some of these dashboards, but it's showing Tethys traffic in 2020. The little squiggly line up at the top is you can see little drops every now and then. Those are weekend traffic. We tend to get less people over the weekends. And you can see a couple of large spikes there in traffic, and those are sometimes associated with events or publication releases. But in total, you can see from the red boxes, we had 90,000 users, and they viewed 215,000 pages. The map below does show engagement by country to give you a sense of how international the audience is. I excluded the US from this map to get better contrast with the remaining countries, but just know that the US had about 30,000 users, which is about 3 times what you see there in the UK. But overall, a third of the people coming from the US, but an international audience for sure. And then lastly, every year we do host these public peer review. We use SurveyMonkey to do these. It's a great opportunity for us to gauge the effectiveness of the site and the completeness of content. This last year we had 86 responses. And we can, one thing that's cool about that is you can kind of see the background of people who responded to that. You can see most people are coming from research, students in the public down at the bottom on that to the right. They probably interact with the site often, but maybe are less likely to sign up for the mailing list and really become fully involved. Most people were interested in offshore wind, but there was also, and there was also significant interest in in wave energy. We are actively targeting more useful content and outreach to the land-based wind community, so we hope to kind of boost those numbers a little bit. But this is also kind of a not fully a representation of the Tethys community, because this is just people who have signed in and decided to give us feedback. Our next peer review is in April, so if you are signed up for our mailing list, please do look out for your email, and we'd love to get more feedback that way, or maybe with the Q&A session later. That's all that I have. I will turn it back over to Alicia. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. Excellent. Perfect. Just to wrap up again, Chris presented in the beginning today on WREN, and WREN really fosters international research and engagement to advance wind energy development through, through environmental data collection and sharing. And then Tethys, we really take all of that information, all of that data from around the world to facilitate data and information exchange on the environmental effects of wind energy that can really help inform design, help reduce the environmental effects of wind energy, and also help to facilitate permitting. Next slide, please. And so just to wrap up, we want to thank you for joining today from ourselves at PNNL and also from NREL. We have the link to Tethys on the bottom here and also in the chat. And feel free to email us with any questions you have. Sign up for the Tethys Blast, and also to provide some content to Tethys as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Haley from PNNL to facilitate the Q&A. Haley?
Thanks, Alicia. All right, so just a reminder, you are more than welcome to enter your questions in the chat, and you can send that to either everyone or one of the hosts. And our first question is for Chris, and this person is wondering how they can become a WREN member.
Thanks, Haley. So to be a part of WREN, you also have to be a part of IEA Wind. This is usually done at the government level. So for the US, the Department of Energy is the member to the International Energy Agency's wind program. And then once you're an IEA member, or your country is, you can then select which of the tasks, of the 16 tasks that you want to participate in. Some of the tasks have fees, but for WREN, or Task 34, the DOE supports the financial aspect, and what we ask for members is a percentage of their time to contribute to the activities, and then to support their travel to the WREN meetings, which are held twice a year.
Great, thank you, Chris. And this next question is either actually for Chris or Alicia. Can you please discuss your connections with the SEER effort?
Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, go ahead, Alicia.
Yeah, okay. So Chris and I are also part of SEER. SEER, for those of you who are not familiar, SEER stands for the U.S. Offshore Wind Synthesis of Environmental Effects Research Project. It's a joint project between PNNL and NREL. It's funded by the Department of Energy Wind Energy Technologies Office. And that effort is really to look at knowledge transfer from international offshore wind development and help transfer that knowledge to the U.S. look at kind of the state of the science, the current understanding of various topics related to environmental effects of offshore wind energy. And so the connection between that effort and Tethys is that, Jonathan mentioned that we have a wind energy page. He mentioned that we are going to be revamping that page. And part of that redesign of the wind energy landing page is we're going to be breaking that apart into, we're going to funnel folks that are interested in land-based wind to a page dedicated to land-based wind. And then we're going to funnel folks also who have interest in offshore wind to a page dedicated to offshore wind that's going to be populated by the content that comes out of the SEER effort. And so with SEER, one of the outcomes of that effort is a series of research briefs that will be collated into a booklet that talk about various topics of environmental effects, whether it's underwater noise or EMF or benthic disturbance, vessel collision. So all of those briefs will be available on Tethys on that offshore wind page. We're also going to be hosting webinars to disseminate the information that we collect through this effort, and all of those webinars will be facilitated through Tethys and be made available on Tethys for all to review and join at their leisure. So, Chris, do you have anything there that you'd like to add?
No, that was a great summary.
Thanks, Alicia. Yeah, great summary. So next question is for Jonathan. Why should I use Tethys instead of a Google search?
I love this question. We get it often. I would just say that if you don't know what you're looking for, then, if you do know what you're looking for, then just use Google, because, enter the title, it'll take you to where you can get the document, and it might even take you to Tethys. But if you don't know what you're looking for, then Tethys is really a great tool for content discovery, because you can kind of use all those curated filters that we have, and all Tethys pages will have access to the content. So, you kind of have an assurance that you'll have some form of access to it once you find that perfect paper that you wanted to find. It's also great for general learning, just seeing how everything in literature has kind of been cataloged, and how the break between environmental stresses and receptors, that can be helpful in terms of kind of getting a lay of the land.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next question is for Chris. When will you be conducting the horizon scan, and how can someone participate?
Yeah, and this is helpful because I should have also mentioned that even if you're not a WREN member, so going back to the first question, even if you're not a member of WREN, you can still participate in WREN activities. And the horizon scan is one of these. So we're really relying on, I guess I should probably turn on my video. We're really relying on the international community and experts to help inform what the key priorities are for offshore and land-based wind energy. And so we're preparing an announcement, and we'll send that out through various forms. So hopefully you'll see it. It'll be included in the Tethys blast, but it'll give a quick summary of it and allow you to opt in to it. We don't want to bother people too much and prod them to be a part of it. We'd rather have folks have the interest in participating. So there'll be this opt-in opportunity to provide feedback to the questions and participate in the iterative process for the horizon scan. So look for that in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Chris. This next question is for Jonathan. I believe you spoke to this a little bit, but is some content skipped because of quality?
Yeah, so most content, we do have a team that's kind of determining whether content fits within the scope. And so, we won't add something that doesn't deal with, wind or marine energy in the environment. But we really are not doing a lot to kind of filter. We're not judging the quality of documents when we add them. For the most part, we're adding anything as long as it's coming from, you know, an authoritative source to some degree. You know, it's very rare that we, you know, filter a document out, but usually if we do, it's usually to do with scope and very rarely to do with, you know, kind of coming out of left field without having, you know, not coming from, you know, industry or academia or you know, like a good research institution. So for the most part, we add everything. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question is for Chris. When will the technology database you discussed be available?
So we're in the relatively early stages of developing the framework for the technology base. So what kind of information will include as entry fields. And we're working closely with PNNL because the database will be housed there. We want it to be visually readable for folks. So we don't want to have too much information where you have to do a lot of scrolling for a given technology or a suite of technologies. So as soon as we as soon as we get that kind of structure worked out, then we can start working on entering in the different technologies. And we're trying to work with other organizations that have existing technology databases to see if we can merge these together. So we're not starting from scratch and we're not duplicating existing efforts. But hopefully by certainly the end of the calendar year, maybe by the end of the fiscal year, we'll have something in place to direct people to. And so we'll have announcements as that's getting closer. We'll likely have an announcement for those interested in having their technology included and making us aware of it. We'll likely have a lot of outreach efforts so that we're covering all of our bases with existing and emerging technologies from around the world. So if six or so months from now, hopefully we'll have something available on Tethys.
Great, thank you, Chris. And those are all the questions I've received. So I think maybe we'll give another minute or so if anyone would like to type a last minute question in the chat. Actually, I've got another question here. So the comment here is I would assume my general understanding with offshore wind development on the West Coast is that it will occur 20 nautical miles offshore. Unfortunately, there are no analogs to this type of development and setting. How will Tethys help address this knowledge gap?
I could take part for that. Sure. So it's a combination of SEER and Tethys here. And so with the SEER effort, part of these research briefs that we're writing talk about the analogs, the analogous industries where complementary information and data has been collected that could be transferred over to offshore wind to help inform our understanding, whether you're talking about putting in oil and gas platforms in the marine environment, or if you're talking about entanglement hazards to marine mammals and sea turtles, maybe looking at the analogy of putting out an ocean buoy with a mooring line. So we are going to be looking at analogs for that effort, and all of that information will be made available in the research briefs and will be made available on Tethys. I'm going to pass it over to Jonathan if he has anything to add about that information that's already in the knowledge base, and if there's any way to kind of find anything existing there.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it pretty well. There are some analogs with oil and gas and some other industries. And wherever we do find relevant analogs, we have tried to include all that within Tethys. So, it's kind of an advantage of having a database that, go there and you're expecting to find wind energy information or marine energy information, right? Well, within that context, you're also finding stuff that's relevant. We have some documents there that will be like very purely, right whale distribution across the East Coast, right? It's a purely environmental document, has nothing to do with wind energy, but we've included it anyway because we know that that's a key concern on the East Coast. And so where possible, you're finding some kind of relevant, not really wind energy content, but still relevant to the same environmental concerns. And I think that's definitely explore the knowledge base and kind of see what's there. But I think you'll find some content like that.
Great, thank you. And that was our last question. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I'll hand it back to Alicia to make any final remarks.
Haley. Well, no, I just want to thank everybody for joining today. This webinar will be made available on Tethys in the coming days, so feel free to head back there and share the link with your colleagues. And if you ever have any questions about Tethys or WREN, feel free to reach out to Chris at NREL, myself, and Jonathan at PNNL. Thank you.